What's going on, everybody? Joined by Glock to break down a little three-game NBA slate tonight. It's not the sexiest slate. I would say that UFC Mexico is a little bit sexier of a sporting event this evening, but nonetheless, we're going to break down some winners. You guys know the drill. Subscribe to the YouTube channel if you're not already subscribed. Hit that like button. Try and get up to, we'll see how many people are in here. We got people filling in right now, but we'll try and shoot for at least 50 likes on a Saturday for kind of a shorter, grosser three-game slate. But Glock, how are you doing today? Excited to talk some hoops with you.
Yeah, man. It's kind of disappointing because we just got out of the All-Star break, and then we had like a 10 game, and then what could have been like a 12-game slate or another 10-game slate. And then now all of a sudden we get a 3-game slate, let's get some balance, NBA. After coming out of a break, let's get like 5, 6. I don't want to see 2 or 3 gamers, but there's money to be had on these prize pools. So excited to break it down. You kind of mentioned it, like it's not the greatest 3-game slate. I kind of agree with you, but obviously there's a big Q tag, which we'll talk about in the late game, which could make things a little interesting with Rudy Gobert being questionable. So we'll dive into it. Glad everyone's here. I mean, Saturday, 3-game NBA slate. That's not the best. I applaud you all for being here and tuning in because it should be fun. But I mean, on paper, it's not the best for sure.
This is how you get ready for like April, March NBA DFS when stuff starts to really start hitting the fan and teams start to tank, and you've got a bunch of no-name like scrubs and stuff at 3K. So don't have that type of slate today, but gross NBA DFS, this is a nice primer.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, definitely.
So if you guys aren't RPS subscribers, use that code RPS15 for 15% off your first payment. Had a couple big hits last night. Had Third and Schlong, another big night in NBA. I think he hit for 30K on FanDuel, 10K for the showdown game against the Lakers and Spurs. So huge night for him. And then Raxon, who's a member, first week as a member, been with us for a little bit less than a week, but been a player for a long time. Shipped the late 222 for 10K last night. So a few big hits in the Discord. And as usual, if there's questions, that kind of thing, up to Glock, myself, and other folks will be there to answer your questions. But for now, we'll get into the slate itself. Like we mentioned, kind of a grosser game. But first game we'll talk about is actually probably the best game as far as DFS goes for this slate, which you wouldn't necessarily think it with Orlando Magic at the Detroit Pistons. Not the most fun teams to target for DFS, but I think a lot of the best plays are in this game. Orlando 7.5-point favorites on the road. 224.5 total in this one. Injury news for the Magic. Markelle Fultz is going to miss again. And then for the Pistons, Quentin Grimes is probable, so he should be making his Pistons debut, which kind of throws a wrench into the rotation a little bit. And then Isaiah Stewart is going to be suspended for 3 games. Don't totally know what happened there. He apparently just punched Drew Eubanks in the tunnel. And if you guys have seen the clip of him going after LeBron, the dude definitely has a little bit of a short temper. So I don't know what Drew said to him, but if he said anything at all, but he's going to be out tonight.
Yeah, the funniest part about that whole thing is I think Shams came out and posted a video on Twitter and kind of explained the whole incident. And he said allegedly Drew Eubanks didn't even flinch when in the video because the NBA has a video surveillance of the whole incident and has it on camera. Shams apparently has the sources that tell him that Drew Eubanks didn't even flinch. And I mean, Drew Eubanks played the next night or the same night, I think. And
I think he played the same night.
He looked fine to me. So, I mean, must have not hurt him that bad. Sucks for Isaiah Stewart. He's out. But obviously, yeah, I mean, this game for sure, just to kick off the slate. On any other day where we have like a 10-game slate, 8-game slate, Orlando, Detroit definitely would not be like a main point of emphasis for sure. But just based on the context of the slate and the matchups that we have and the pricing considered, this definitely is going to be one of the better spots of the night. You start with Orlando. Paolo Banchero is going to be a great play. Franz Wagner. Those two have really stepped it up this year, it seems, and are the true playmakers of the Orlando side, it feels. And then obviously you have Jalen Suggs, 4.8K on DraftKings. He's never a guy I truly love playing. Like it's really tough because like you have him and Cole Anthony, right? And it seems as of late, Cole Anthony has been phased out of the rotation somewhat, but there's always a feeling where like if Cole Anthony comes in and he gets hot, like he can close over Jalen Suggs. So Jalen Suggs at chalk doesn't feel the best, but on this slate with the value that we have at hand, he will probably be one of the most owned plays and probably be like one of my favorite value plays. It's sad for me to say that, honestly, but he should play in the upper 20s in minutes, regardless of how Cole Anthony plays. And he's just going to be out there, right? And at least playing minutes. And on short slates like this, you want those minute plays per se. Like I don't want to be depending on a guy that's coming off the bench and playing 10 to 15 minutes and hoping he can get you like 15 to 18 fantasy points. So I'm going to be shooting for more minutes, guys, tonight. And so, the main Orlando guys, we'll talk about value after you touch on them, Bobby. But my main guy is definitely going to be Paolo, Franz, and Jalen Suggs.
I'm 100% with you on that being my favorite plays on the Magic as well. Like the Magic rotation is not necessarily a fun one, and we've seen, I don't know, a bunch of different starters throughout the year. And Cole Anthony, like I don't know what he did, but like even when Markelle Fultz has been out, like he's still just not been getting super great run. The minutes have been a little bit better the last 2 games, and like he's appealing at his price tag, but I don't feel like it's safe at all as far as the minutes go. And actually the Magic game last game was kind of a weird one too against Cleveland, where they ended up surprisingly winning. And so obviously game to game, you can really only feel super confident in Paolo and Franz's minutes on the Magic. But like the bench played really well. Jonathan Isaac plus 17, Mo Wagner plus 18, Joe Jangles plus 23, and Anthony Black was plus 21 as well. And the starters, everyone had a negative plus minus against the Cavs. And I mean, I think in a lot of ways, Wendell Carter Jr., when he hasn't played as well defensively, like we've seen the minutes be, as high of having a ceiling now that he's been back of 30 plus minutes. But if he's not playing well, they're not afraid to go to Mo Wagner, or I mean, I don't think that Goga's going to play, but like he's randomly played too. Like the Orlando Magic have one of the most frustrating rotations in the entire NBA. So I think on just like as far as guys you feel secure on their role night to night, Paolo and Franz are really the only 2 guys that you can feel super secure with. Jalen Suggs' role is pretty secure. I would expect on a night-to-night basis, pretty much always at least mid-20s in minutes. So I agree with you on a point per dollar basis. Like he grades out as one of the best plays on the slate. I like Jalen Suggs quite a bit. Really good matchup against Detroit too. And Wendell Carter Jr., it's a good matchup for him. 5-1 is a nice price tag. Like we were paying like $6K for him not too long ago. So I like Wendell Carter Jr. And then the rest of the Magic, it doesn't look amazing, but it's a shorter slate and some of the better, like just guys that grade out from a value perspective. But I don't want to go crazy with the Orlando bench. Cole Anthony is definitely in play at 4-2 against this Detroit Pistons team. Again, I don't feel confident in the minutes. You could tell me he plays 14 minutes. You could tell me he plays 25. I believe you either way, and the range of outcomes is anywhere in between there. So I know it's a good matchup, and it's not a bad spot to take a chance on him. Not a fan of Gary Harris at 3.9. I think Mo Wagner is solid at 3.6. He's been playing well, but I think it's going to be a little bit more of the hot hand type of approach. So like if Wendell Carter Jr. is playing well and he plays like 30 minutes, then you're basically just going to see these 2 guys split the center minutes. Like last game, Wagner played 25 minutes, Wendell Carter played 23, 48 minutes. So I think it's a good rule from a 20 max or a MME perspective. I like making, I guess in 20 max, I for sure like a max one of them. I could see
For sure.
Mo maybe somehow making the winner because he's power forward eligible at that price tag in MME, but still, I don't think they correlate well. So I think a rule like that makes some sense. So I'd say that Wagner and Anthony are my favorite sheet Magic plays. And Isaac and Ingles will have like some spike games here and there. I don't feel particularly confident in either of them. So they're not going to be priorities, but in like 20 lineups on a short slate like this, sure, I'll get a little bit of those guys. And Anthony Black's just not a good fantasy producer. So him and Gary Harris would be my least favorite guys off the bench for the Magic.
Yeah, I'm pretty much with you. One guy I forgot to mention, Wendell Carter. He's actually popping a lot, which you mentioned it, man. Like those minutes are just so frustrating. Like I don't understand it. Like this is a lottery pick. Like you really need to be developing this guy, I feel like. And I know they have like Jonathan Isaac that they want to develop, who's a lottery pick as well. But Wendell Carter Jr. has shown like, he's been productive, at least from a DFS standpoint when he's got the minutes. And when he does get the minutes, it feels like his floor is like 30 at least, but it's just some games, like you look at it, last 2 games, he's played 23 minutes against Cleveland, where you would think they would need his services against the double bigs. The Knicks, he only played 24 minutes. I mean, the Knicks can go small there, but then against OKC, he played 31 minutes and put up 30 fantasy points. So he is productive when he gets out there. So I do like him. It's just, I think I would agree with you where I would max one of Wendell and Mo. And I would try to get one of those guys in my lineups, most likely. Just a big versus Detroit seems like something you want to exploit when it comes from a matchup perspective. And then, the other 2 value plays you mentioned, Jonathan Isaac and Cole Anthony, they're fine. I mean, it's interesting because when you run lineups right now, like my Opto one has 5 Orlando. So in a way to get different, I definitely don't want to be playing 6 for sure. So I would try to bring that number down. I'm considering I want to try like max 3 Orlando and see what it kind of gets me. And we'll talk about it later, but there's that Rudy Gobert Q tag in the later game. So like, who knows if we're going to get that news, before lock or after this game locks. But either way, like personally, I kind of want to be flexible. And like, let's say you don't want to play Jonathan Isaac. You have Kyle Anderson in the later game. That's a similar price and is a 1-to-1 pivot. I mean, even if Gobert is in, is he really going to be that bad of a play? Like, both of these guys are coming off the bench. I think they have pretty similar range of outcomes, and Kyle Anderson's outlook can only get better if Rudy Gobert misses. So that's something I'm going to be trying to consider, because right now, like if you just lock into all these Orlando plays, which are good as of now with Rudy Gobert in, it could look a lot worse if Rudy Gobert is out, because you have value plays that could open up. So I think Mo Wagner would be my favorite play when it comes to value on Orlando side. And then Jonathan Isaac, but I think it's Mo Wagner for me by a long shot.
Yeah, I'm with you. And one other thing I'll note too, the Magic are on the front end of a back-to-back. So Jonathan Isaac, we've seen at times being like low 20s to mid 20s of minutes in like that one OT game. I think just the chances of him playing like real more significant minutes on the front end of a back-to-back just doesn't make a ton of sense to me, unless they were just like sit him tomorrow. So I think that kind of limits his upside from a minutes perspective. Like he can be super efficient on a fantasy point per minute basis. So like he's in play in a short slate with 3 fairly gross games, but I think that downgrades him a little bit being on the front end of a back-to-back personally.
Yeah, same. I think they played the Mavs on a back end of a back-to-back, and he started and guarded Luka for like the first quarter, and then he sat the rest of the game. He did an amazing job. I mean, I think he's an elite defender. He just has to stay healthy. But yeah, I think the back-to-back is definitely something to consider, just because he's so injury prone, and Orlando definitely seems like they're taking a more cautious approach with him.
Yeah. I mean, this is the most play we've gotten out of Jonathan Isaac since like probably his rookie year. Like he's actually like been on the court consistently.
Yeah, and I think like, injuries aside, he is an insane defender. Like he's long and athletic. He can guard probably 1 through 5. But who cares? I mean, for DFS perspective, it doesn't really matter. I just, in general for basketball, I just hope he stays healthy and, so he could show his full potential. But yeah, that back-to-back is definitely something that's good that you pointed out, because he is definitely impacted by those.
100%. All right. Any other thoughts on the Magic before we go to the Detroit side of things and try and figure out what the hell Monty's going to do with his rotation?
Not really. I think we covered Orlando pretty well. And, you mentioned Orlando being a gross rotation. We are getting into an even grosser rotation on the opposite side. So, yeah.
Yeah. Oh my God. I'll let you take the first stab at Detroit. Tell us who to play on the Pistons clock.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so out of the break, there was like some Monty Williams coach speak about them playing to win, right? Or something along those lines. I don't have it exactly right, but I think they were getting smoked by Indiana at halftime, and somehow they kind of made it a game. So like you saw 30 minutes from their main starters, which are Simone Fontecchio, All-Star Thompson, Cade Cunningham, Jaden Ivey, Jalen Duren. One thing I like to do on short slates, if one side is super chalky, I always like trying to correlate somewhat, because you're already going to have 3 to 4 Orlando pieces, right? Maybe in some cases 5. So pairing, on the opposite side with like a Jalen Duren or a Jaden Ivey, who are kind of in a nice price range, and hoping that the game stays competitive, that would give you kind of a nice correlation edge, because obviously if Paolo and Franz are going off, then ideally on the opposite side, you hope that someone on Detroit is pushing them, to their ceiling, right? For me personally, like Detroit, for me, it's just really what feels the safest are the starters. I know that's a cop out, but you just look at last game where, all the starters played above 30 minutes and it was teetering on borderline blowout where, the Pacers were ahead like by 15 to 20 most of the game. If you look at Popcorn Machine, at the average lead the Pacers had was 15 and a half points. So that just shows you like, maybe a guy like Malachi Flynn or Shake Milton on Detroit could get cut out if Monty, makes it tries to be a little more serious. I mean, I think, what is that? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's an 11-man rotation that he came out of the break with when he was quote unquote saying that they're playing to win. So I don't know. Like, I would side with the starters, and if I were to rank it, I probably like Jalen Duren the most. Kind of the lineups where I'm fading Wendell. Like, maybe I hope Jalen Duren gets him in foul trouble, and then I play Mo Wagner, and then those two are playing a lot of minutes. Like Duren and Mo Wagner are splitting on the center minutes on each side, which I kind of like. Jaden Ivey is a guy that they seem kind of more committed to, it seems at this point, and he's at a pretty nice price tag. So I would probably like him the second most. And then obviously Cade Cunningham, like I think him and Ivy kind of take upside away from each other. So I definitely max one. And Cade's price is kind of in a weird range on the slate where it's kind of difficult to get to. So I might prefer Ivy over Cade, but the triple double upside with Cade is there. So if you like him, then I don't mind it at all. And then Osar Thompson and Simone Fontecchio, they're kind of more filler plays for me. I don't think I'm going to prioritize them. But I mean, they're in the price tag, 4.6K for Simone and then 5.5K for Osar. They're kind of in that price range where if they're like a last in, you feel pretty good about it. I mean, as good as you can get for a Monty Williams rotation. So yeah.
I think that those guys' minutes have been fairly secure. I mean, so I know Monty had some comments around Jaden Ivey and like his consistency and stuff towards the beginning of the year. I feel like, I don't know, I feel like he is like more of an old school coach and does want to win. So like it's more so like I can't say that I watch every single Detroit Pistons game with a super close eye every single time. But I think it's more of one of those things where if Ivy's not playing well, like Monty's just basically gonna be like, just go to the bench, you're not playing well, like I'm trying to win, blah, blah, blah. So I think it's more of just like a short leash when certain guys aren't playing as well as at least some of my guests. But I think at the price tag of 6'3" kind of limits like some of the downside and it being a short slate. So like I think that Jaden Ivey is solid. I don't feel amazing about the play, but I think that he's solid. And to your point too, like it makes sense if you're gonna be heavy on the Magic side, you're gonna hope the game stays close and you want to get to more guys on the Pistons. So I don't know. I like Ivy. Thompson and Fontecchio are gonna be my favorite two plays though. Fontecchio in particular, he's projected to be, I believe he's projected to be owned in single digit. Oh, I guess I see a couple different ownership percentages. I see between 8 and 20% between a few different sources. So I don't think he's gonna be super high owned. The price tag's pretty nice. His usage rate in Utah was only around 15%. And since he's gotten to Detroit, I mean, my guy has been chucking and like only 4 games with Detroit. He's had a usage of 21%. He's taking 13 shots a game, consistently playing at least low 20s to mid 20s a minutes, and a lot of times low 30s a minutes. And he's just taking a lot of shots, fits a lot of different lineup builds too with small forward and power forward eligibility. So I like Thompson and Fontecchio the best for the Pistons. Ivy solid, Duren. Like I mentioned at times, Wendell Carter Jr., especially defense, hasn't been great. So I think that Duren looks solid. I think that Cunningham is in play as well. And I don't think I can touch the bench, dude. I know James Wiseman's like popped up with okay games here and there. Fournier had a couple games that were decent, but with Quentin Grimes probable in this one, like I just have no idea what the minutes are going to look like between Fournier, Grimes, Brown, like Sasser, Milton. Like maybe Monty plays them all 10 minutes. Like I don't know. I don't have a good feel for it. Grimes has been out for a while. I know one of the local guys for Detroit mentioned that like it could could take a game or two for him to get his conditioning back. So he's missed so much time that I don't even know if we're going to know what his like real role is going to look like on a day by day basis, considering he's missed so much time. So I don't know. I'm with you, mainly just interested in the starters, in particular the couple cheaper guys.
Yeah, I mean, you hit it good. Like Quentin Grimes, the introduction of him, like these past few slates, Evan Fournier has been like kind of a chalky value option that, people have relied on, which, anytime that happens, I'm like, let me find the first lineup. I'm a single entry guy. So it's like, let me find the first lineup that doesn't have Evan Fournier and see how it looks. So, if Evan Fournier is popping, then I'll probably try to avoid that as well. Similar to the other bench guys as well. I think if I had to pick one, I think my favorite play would be James Wiseman, almost the near min. And Jalen Duren at times has been foul prone. I mean, Wendell Carter Jr., when he's in there, he does feel aggressive when he gets the ball. Like it does feel like he's looking to score because, his minutes are not guaranteed. So when he does get the post touches, it does feel like he's trying to get in there, post the guys up. And Jalen Duren has been notorious for getting in foul trouble. So, as a pivot, like if you don't want to play Jalen Duren and you want some salary relief to correlate with Orlando, I don't mind James Wiseman at all. Like I said, it's not the best, but on these 3-game slates, if you can hit on a low owned 3K punt guy when everyone else is playing, a chalky other 3K option, like a Jonathan Isaac or something like that, it can really give you a lot of leverage. So yeah.
That's a fair point. I don't like James Wiseman. I don't know if I even get to a single share of him, but I get the logic and the thought process, especially with something like Duren that can get in foul trouble. And the point that I'll make too on like a lineup construction standpoint, there's a lot of like spends on the slate. No, like one spend looks amazing, but if you do have like a guy that's 3K, you just get more raw points in your lineup.
Yeah, and I forgot to say one thing about your Fontecchio call. Like I see a site that has him over like 20% owned, which is surprising because when I just ran my lineups at 150 before we jumped on, I'm getting none of him. So I think he's going to come in under. Like I just think he's at a weird range where, people are going to play Suggs instead, and that forward spot, it does feel like it's more, people are more spending up for it, like a Paolo or a Franz, and then going down low for like a Isaac or Wagner because Wagner's also forward eligible tonight. So I think he's going to get squeezed out personally, and I think he'll be lower owned than 20% for sure.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think 20% is too high. I think, probably in like the neighborhood of like, I don't know, 8 to 15 maybe, or like 8 to
Yeah, that sounds
12.
right. That sounds right.
But for a 3-game slate, that's very low.
Yeah, for sure. A starter that's that lowish owned on a 3-game slate, I think you would take that anytime.
Yeah, 100%. All right, we'll move to the next one. I know there's a lot of talk on the Magic and Pistons, but I think it's, as of right now, probably the best looking game on the slate for DFS, at least just how guys are grading out in projections right now. Next 2 games will be better to watch, though. I'd much rather watch these other games than watch Pistons and Magic. So next game we'll go to Celtics at the Knicks. Boston 6.5-point favorites on the road, 224.5 total in this one. Boston, no on the injury report. They're not on the back-to-back, so Horford and Porzingis should be available for the Knicks. McBride is questionable. OG, Julius Randle, Mitch Robinson remain out. So what are your thoughts, Glock? We'll start with the Celtics side of things. Who do you like on the Boston side?
Yeah, it's crazy because like I'm seeing these ownership numbers and like I'm seeing the starting 5 of Boston all get like north of 15% ownership, and Kristaps Porzingis is projecting chalky. Like I said, it's like that forward 7K range with like Franz Wagner and Paolo. Jason Tatum is getting ownership as a spend up. I'm not getting a lot of them in my 150 set, which is surprising to me to see like all these guys get ownership. And I don't know, man. Boston is always tough for me. And if you've read my playbooks throughout the year so far, like when they're fully healthy, it's kind of, it feels to me like you're playing roulette. Obviously, Jason Tatum, you could consider him all the time, especially in the Garden. MVP candidate, wanting to show out. This game's on national television, so obviously you have the salary to spend up to him. Don't mind it at all. And then after that, that's kind of where I feel like it becomes more of like roulette. Like obviously, Kristaps Porzingis, Jaylen Brown, Drew Holiday, Derek White, one of those guys probably has to get there in a close competitive game. It's just trying to figure out which one is like something I try to avoid personally, like reducing the amount of guessing is always something that I try to do. Like, and I'll try to concentrate on, teams that have just clear usage and, funnel all the usage to X player rather than like, okay, tonight it could be a KP game. Tonight it could be Jaylen Brown game. Is it going to be a Drew Holiday or Derek White game? I don't really know. So I probably will avoid this side for the most part. Obviously, like I said, Jason Tatum, don't mind it at all if you spend up to him. And then if I were to have to pick like a mid-range guy of the secondary Boston guys, I probably like Porzingis the most. He just fits your build construction a little better than the other pieces. And you get that kind of baked in #revenge, right? He's back against the Knicks in the Garden, which he didn't have too much good history with. So yeah, I mean, I think Jason Tatum and Kristaps Porzingis would be my favorite from the Boston side. And then, unlike the Detroit and Orlando side, I don't think I'll have any interest in the cheapies on Boston.
Yeah, I'm not gonna love the cheap plays in Boston. And similar thoughts to you. Boston's one of those teams when they're healthy. It's just I want to get one, maybe two of them, and unless there's like a certain matchup that dictates it or something, like you're not gonna have an amazing feel on who the guy is going to be. I mean, Tatum's pretty much always gonna look the best. I will say, last 10 games against the Knicks, Tatum has gone for 56 plus DK points on five occasions and gone for 60 plus 4 times. So despite a tougher matchup against the Knicks, he has done well against them in recent years. The Celtics have won all 3 games against the Knicks so far this season. Tatum has a couple stinkers against the Knicks too. Defense, they're certainly missing. Like missing OG definitely doesn't help them from a defensive perspective. But I don't know. I prefer to go to Tatum if I'm spending up in general on this slate. I think Tatum and Ant are probably the best 2 spends. I mean, Paolo's up there too. Those would be the 3 like main guys. And I mean, Porzingis, Brown, White, Holiday, like they're all priced appropriately. I'm with you. I lean position eligibility wise. I like Porzingis the best of the starters besides Jason Tatum. Horford at 5'8", it's really tough to consider off the bench. Pritchard, Hauser. Again, if you're MMEing, sure, you get a sprinkle of these guys. I don't know, maybe the game blows out or something like that. Weird stuff can happen on a 3-game slate, but you're probably pretty much going just for the starters. And I don't mind a rule of, I know it's a shorter slate, but I wouldn't hate the idea of having like max 2 Celtics either. Like I have a hard time seeing like 3 of the Celtics starters getting here on the slate.
Yeah, for sure. And if you do want to play 2 to 3, I know you're not like that big into correlation, but I think I would personally play at least one Nick on the opposite side just to kind of force because it's a 3-game slate, right? Obviously, if this was like a 5 to 8 to 10 game slate, you might not want to force this correlation in. But let's say this game is the only one that's competitive, goes to overtime, double overtime, maybe even national television. I mean, we've seen some crazy national television games that have gone to double OT. If you remember that Warriors game as of late. So if this is the only competitive game and you have like a 5-man stack of it, you're going to be loving it because, it's a short slate and anything can happen. So I would definitely consider that if playing multiple Boston pieces.
Yeah, I mean, before the break, the Nets got blown up by the Celtics 136-86. Jacques Vaughn got canned and Kevin Ollie took over, and then they just got beat by the Raptors by like 30 points. So I don't know. I wouldn't project, I guess, this Wolves and Nets game to blow out, but I don't know. The Nets are reeling a little bit, and they just made a coaching change.
Exactly. Yeah, I'm just saying, like in theory, I'd even consider like just in theory in general, like doesn't matter what the last game is or like what the other 2 games are. If this game, the Knicks and Boston, is competitive and it stays close while the other 2 are not, and you're sitting on a game stack of the studs on both of each sides, like you're gonna be feeling pretty good. And I know like on RPS, like generally 2 or 3 game slates, if you overstack a game, it can make you different for sure. And this would be one of them.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm less on correlation in NBA as far as like stacks and stuff as I would be in MLB or NFL as an example. But I agree with you. A shorter slate, it makes more sense just because you can have those instances where a game or 2 blows out, and all of a sudden you want to be on one game in particular. So I'm with you on that. I think the Celtics side looks better than the Knicks side. For the Knicks, I mean, Jalen Brunson's one of the only guys that looks great to me for the Knicks side of things. But I don't know. What are your thoughts? Do you have more interest in that than I do on the Knicks?
Yeah, Josh is asking what Knicks player would you play then? I mean, let us get into the Knicks, right? Yeah, I think Jalen Brunson is by far and away the
Perfect
best
segue.
option. Yeah, Jalen Brunson is by far and away the best option in my opinion, and it feels like every time there is a Celtics slate, they do tend to play down to their competition. I mean, I know the spread isn't that wide. I think it was like 7 or something the last time I checked, but generally Boston has played competitive, and obviously in a competitive game, Jalen Brunson, even though he will likely be guarded by Drew Holiday, I don't think it's really mattered too much this year. Holiday feels like he's getting older, and obviously he's going to crank it up when it matters in the playoffs. So in the regular season, I think Jalen Brunson's a fine option. My next favorite would probably be Dante DiVincenzo. He seems to be one of the chalkier options from New York, but man, I mean, the dude's been chucking the heck out of the ball. If you just look at his game log, let me just pull it up real quick. What is it? He's shooting at least 15 times a game, and he hasn't been shooting that well from 3, which is kind of scary. Obviously, when Jalen Brunson was out and he was kind of the main horse, we were playing him a ton in DFS, and he was crushing. That was when he was like not missing and looked like the reincarnation of Steph Curry out there. So obviously, if he gets hot like that again, he'll easily crush that 7.4K tag. So him and Brunson would be my favorites. Josh Hart is projecting for the most ownership, which is kind of weird to me. But like I said, he's in that forward position eligibility, and he's in that 6 to like 7K price range, which for him and Franz, him and Paolo, you kind of like rotate between the 3. So I don't mind Josh Hart. I just don't love it as much as I would like Jalen Brunson and Dante. And then in regards to the secondary pieces, I don't think I'll have too much interest. I think 7.1K for Precious is a little too rich for my liking. And then, off the bench, obviously you have Alec Burks, Bojan, Miles McBride is questionable, but I don't think I'm going to be digging into them. Their price tags just are a little too high for off the benchers, I would say. You have to be drooling pretty hard for them to get there. And, when you have off the benchers like in Orlando and maybe in Minnesota, which we'll talk about soon, I just can't get into these price tags personally.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't know what Hartenstein's minutes are going to look like. He played like hardly at all last game out. I think he played like 11, 12 minutes returning. And he had some quotes after the game that he was frustrated that he didn't reach the planned workload in an injury return. So I don't know. Maybe he gets in Tibbs' ear and he does play more in this one. Like I definitely would. I mean, I'm not playing Hartenstein on this slate. Like I think that the minutes are going to go up at some point, but with it being a little bit tougher of a matchup, I don't think he's going to go all of a sudden back up to his full minutes. If you are MMEing, I wouldn't completely X him out. Like again, 3-game slate, all of a sudden if you get 35 minutes from Hartenstein at this price tag, like I don't think that's insane, but like I can't go there in single entry, and I don't think I could even get there in 20 max. It would be just like an MME only type of play. But I'm with you. Like the secondary Knicks just don't look amazing. I think, and Brunson at this price tag, I think he looks just okay. I don't think that he looks amazing. And I don't think that DiVincenzo looks great. To your point, when we had Brunson out, like he was the primary guy on offense. Like he was chucking, looking great and stuff. But this Boston matchup in particular, too, Boston has holds opponents to the 5th worst 3-point percentage in the league, and they allow the 4th least amount of three-point attempts too. So, from that perspective, I think that kind of hurts Bogdanovich, and it hurts DiVincenzo just with how well Boston is at defending the 3. So, if I'm looking at secondary Knicks, I would rather go to Josh Hart outside of Brunson, but I don't think a single Knick is going to make my main team, and I'm not going to be very high on them today.
Yeah, I'm with you. And yeah, on the Hartenstein thing, I mean, you have to think they keep limiting him. I mean, literally the game when he played a lot of minutes or was going to, it looked like he tore his Achilles. So I don't know how he's like perfectly okay and able to play, after the break, but it's definitely something that, if I was a medical staff, I would definitely consider limiting him as much as I can. I mean, obviously when he's out there and he's fully healthy, he's super productive, is active for them, gets rebounds, putbacks. But man, I mean, just not having that Achilles tear is kind of crazy to me. So I can't blame the Knicks for being cautious with him. And I would think that they just continue that that plan. And maybe if Hartenstein was more like in the 4K price range or something like that, like maybe you could consider taking a shot, just hoping that that limit just gets relieved and he's good to go. But at 6.4K, you're going to need a lot to go right, it feels like. So I'll prefer to stay away.
Mm-hmm. No, I'm with you. If you're not 150 maxing, I think I would definitely stay away. And even then, I wouldn't blame you if you faded at that price tag. Probably going to play like 20 minutes tonight. All right, final game we're going to go to Nets at the Timberwolves. Wolves are 8.5-point favorites at home, 218.5 total in this one. Only piece of injury news relevant to this game is Rudy Gobert is questionable. He sprained his ankle last game, but finished the game up. He said that he thought he would be fine and mentioned that to the beat reporters. So we'll see. There's been a couple times where we thought Gobert could miss, and he ended up playing. And Gobert's only missed one game this whole season. That was against the Celtics. And Slow-Mo started for him. So Slow-Mo played 39 minutes. It went to OT against the Celtics. Jay McDaniels fell out. Cat played big minutes. Na played big minutes. Ant did too, since Mike Conley was out. And Slow-Mo had a big game. Cat had a big game. Ant was decent, and Naz Reid had a huge game. So I think those are the main guys that would benefit if Gobert sat. So I don't know. We'll start with the home team in this one. Actually, we'll start with the Wolves. I tend to think Gobert plays, but I think there's some game theory in getting this right potentially too, with it being the late game. What are your thoughts, Glock? Do you think Gobert plays or sits?
Yeah, I mean, there's only so many edges left, right, in DFS nowadays. So playing for an edge like this, which is the late island game, we don't know when this news will come, right? This game only tips an hour after the initial game log. So if I'm obviously playing for the news, that's probably what I'm going to try to do, honestly, and hope that Gobert's out, because like I said earlier in the show, people are going to lock into Jonathan Isaac, right? People are going to lock into Wendell Carter Jr.'s. And you have price pivots from the Minnesota side in each range that you can easily go to. Jonathan Isaac into a Kyle Anderson if you have a little extra salary. You can go like from Mike Conley into Naz Reid. Obviously, that's the same team-to-team pivot, but if you have Mike Conley in your util spot, you can easily go to Naz Reid, if Gobert is out. But I would say both Conley and Naz Reid get better, in Gobert's absence. So if we're talking like another Orlando pivot, let's see, what was it? Wendell Carter Jr. into Naz Reid is an easy pivot as well. So like just hoping that the news probably comes after lock and people lock into these Orlando plays is probably something I'm going to be playing for personally. And yeah, like when it comes to Minnesota, like Karl-Anthony Towns, Anthony Edwards, they already project as really strong plays for today, and their outlook can only get better if Rudy Gobert is out. So just kind of hoping that Minnesota takes a stance like, okay, I know they did lose to Milwaukee last night, so maybe they want to come out and make a statement that kind of makes me lean more that Rudy plays, but just kind of taking that out of the equation and hoping that Gobert sits, it would give you a lot of edge on the slate to kind of get guys like a Naz Reid lower owned than he actually should be. So I may play for Rudy Gobert out. And I know you're kind of the resident Minnesota fan and don't think he plays, or does think he plays. So that kind of hurts a little bit, but it's 3-game slate. Do I really feel bad about loading up on Orlando and just waiting for the later news? I personally think I can wait. And, obviously if I land on Karl-Anthony Towns with Rudy Gobert, it doesn't feel as bad. So we'll talk about some 2v2 pivots some pivots that I've been thinking about later. But yeah, you have to love the Minnesota side, even if Gobert's in. And I would probably rank it Carl the highest, and then Ant second. And then if Gobert is in, I actually think he's a great tournament play. I think he's a little overpriced, which should keep his ownership in check. But bigs against Brooklyn is kind of something that I've always liked to target, even though Claxton is kind of like has a reputation for being a good shot blocker. It does feel like Rudy Gobert goes off against really bad teams, and I would consider Brooklyn one of them. So I like those three, and then obviously Mike Conley, Kyle Anderson, Jaden McDaniels, fine filler plays for sure. I'll have some exposure for Minnesota on my lineups tonight.
Yeah, I'm gonna like the Wolves side a lot more than the Nets. I'm with you in that. The Nets, I targeted Emmanuel Quickly and Gary Trent against them the other night. they definitely defense has been better in the paint than it has been on the perimeter. They've got bottom 10% allowed for as far as 3-point field goal percentage. So I think that definitely helps someone like Cat. Cat did really well in this matchup last time out. This price tag is pretty nice too with power forward eligibility. So love Cat, like Ant. With you if Gobert's in, he looks solid. Conley at this price tag. I'm not usually a Conley guy, but the price tag's fine. And I think it's an okay matchup. Nas Reed not projecting for much ownership. So, if you don't have the Gobert news right away and you get that news right at 4.9K, I think he's still an okay play, even if Gobert was in. But, obviously at this price tag, you can't make him a priority if Gobert is in. And I think Kyle Anderson and like Jaden McDaniel's price tags are completely fine, even if Gobert is in. So it's not the worst thing to get stuck on. Like I would much rather roll the dice on Kyle Anderson with Gobert potentially out than play like Jonathan Isaac on the front end of a back-to-back. Like to me, the upside with the play, even if Gobert's egg, it's well worth the risk, even though I'd still take slow-mo straight up, even if Gobert's in.
100%. Yeah. I mean, that's an easy pivot for me. And what sucks right now is like Kyle Anderson is already projecting for some ownership. So like there is a chance that Kyle Anderson, even if Rudy Gobert's in, is more owned than Jonathan Isaac. I hope not. I hope people just funnel into the Isaac play and then we can get Kyle Anderson without Rudy Gobert later. But yeah, I totally agree with you. Like, I think there was a slate where there was this exact same scenario where Jonathan Isaac was locking early, and then you could really just play like Naw or Kyle Anderson later based on the injury news. And Kyle Anderson, I think, ended up smashing while Jonathan Isaac barely got there, or I think he busted a shock. I'm not really sure, but for some reason in my head, it's like I think he busted, and he was projected chalk. So I think there's like a similar situation, and yeah, I would just rather wait out for sure rather than locking into an early cheap chalk play.
Yeah, I'm with you. How about the Nets side? I am not excited to play really anyone on the Nets.
Oh my god. Are these like not like the teams on this slate, like three of them, Orlando, Detroit, Brooklyn, they got to be the most frustrating from a rotation standpoint. Like just off the top of my head, like I can't really think of any other worse teams, I guess, like when it comes to rotations for DFS. Like, so like, yeah, I mean, that makes it easy for me, at least from a DFS perspective. I don't think I'm going to be prioritizing anyone personally, especially with this new coaching change with Ali that they have. I still think they're trying to figure things out. And I'm seeing ownership like 30% on Mikal Bridges. Like, feel free, go ahead. I'll take that. I'll pass on that. 10% on Claxton, 10% Cam Thomas, 20% on Dennis Schroeder, not even starting. Like, that's insane to me. I'll fade personally, and if it beats me, it beats me. I have respect in Minnesota. Obviously, the defensive matchup gets a little better if Rudy Gobert misses. So that might entice me more into Brooklyn, but I'm not gonna plan for it. Like I'm gonna plan for more the Minnesota side and being adjustable for that. Like if Rudy Gobert's out, but I don't think I'm gonna plan to like run it back with any of these Brooklyn pieces personally.
Yeah, I'm with you. I mean, I think as well, Bridges' usage with Cam Thomas in the starting lineup doesn't do him any favors either. So you've got the coaching change, tougher matchup. Cam Thomas in the starting lineup. Like, if I had to play a net starter, I lean Cam Thomas. I'm with you. I'm out on Claxton, especially at ownership. What they run Sharp back, the minutes are just not anywhere near secure. Like Sharp will have these stretches where he plays awesome. And then Claxton will have games where he potentially plays like high 20s a minute instead of low 30s a minute. So it just lowers his entire ceiling and hurts his floor. So I think Bridges like is okay. Like if you're playing 20 or more teams, like sure, maybe you get a couple shares here and there. But yeah, this team is gross. I mean, honestly, on a point per dollar basis, I think my favorite three Nets would be Thomas, Bridges, and then Day'Ron Sharp is my third favorite. Sharp at 3.9, I don't think is like an insane value on the slate, but you don't really need to go there on like a single entry, just more of a large field type of play that I like a bit.
Yeah. And honestly, if it was a Vaughn, I would feel better about Sharp because man, it felt like Vaughn loved playing Sharp. It would like easily get away from Claxton and like small ball lineups. Obviously, it's a little harder for sure with Minnesota to go small. But I think before the break, yeah, that was with Vaughn. They started Schroeder. That was something that kind of like obviously if Schroeder started, he would look a little better. But man, it's just a lot of usage hogs, right? Like Schroeder needs the ball to generate fantasy points. Cam Thomas obviously needs the ball. Mikal Bridges obviously needs the ball to generate fantasy points. So even if Schroeder did get the start, it feels kind of thin. So yeah, I think Brooklyn is, for a single entry team, I don't think I'm going to be focusing like too much on Brooklyn personally.
Yeah, they're pretty much total fade. So, all right, 3 games in the books. I hope to never be on a show with you again where we have to talk about the Orlando Magic and Detroit Pistons this much.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Let's hope it's like a 5 to 8 game slate where it's like easy cross off to start our nights for sure.
Sounds good. All right. Well, you guys, if you're not already RPS subs, sign up with code RPS15 for 15% off your first payment. We'll have all the core plays up a little bit closer to Glock. Glock's already got the playbook up. So if you're looking for written rundown of the entire slate, that's up there. If you have questions, throw it to us in the Discord, and we'll be a little bit of wait and see mode till we get the Rudy Gobert news, or we'll just build and hope for the best. So for myself, for Glock, we're out of here. Good luck on the Saturday slate, everybody. Peace.